Hi, everyone. So the post-lunch session, as Peter said, is generally challenging, but help me make it a little more interesting. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, okay. I'm not a good presenter. I'm more of a conversationalist. So please help me by asking questions. I promise to finish my presentation 10 minutes early, so you have plenty of time. So please keep your questions ready. And politically incorrect questions are more welcome. Okay? So I don't know who came up with this title, Priority, Purpose, and the Power of Why Not. Some smart person in PepsiCo. Just to make it interesting, however, this presentation is about learning. Learning from our failures, learning from our successes, both for PepsiCo as a learning organization, as well as me personally. So, just a little bit, one slide about myself. Born and brought up in India, I did my chemical engineering and process engineering from India. I like adventures, all kinds of adventures, which is not typical for a food safety professional. So I'm good with sushi and sashimi, yeah? I'll encourage everyone to go for it. So not just sushi and sashimi, but everything that walks or crawls. So everything from snake to anything you can imagine. And I've been to China many times. Adventures, everything from jumping off the plane to scuba diving, and anything which is different, I go for it. Again, very unusual for a food safety professional. English is my third language. Born and brought up in India, I had a mother tongue, and then Hindi being kind of a national language for India, did most of my studies in school in the local language, and then, so if I say something wrong, which means something different, excuse me. Yeah. So yeah, Peter spoke about it, 1.5 years in Thermax, sales and projects. Sales, this is an engineering company, so this was selling to engineers, not to consumers, right? Unilever, EHS, Environment, Health and Safety, at that time, Unilever was also in fertilizers. So they had the largest fertilizer factory in the world in India, and I was responsible for EHS, and then moved over to selling biopolymers. Again, engineers selling to engineers because it is used in paper and textiles. And then my forever PepsiCo, I found my love. 29 years so far, India, US, Dubai, and then back to US. Different things, commercialization, digitization, supply chain, and why do I mention this? I genuinely believe it made me a whole food safety and quality professional, because I understand when business leaders talk about something or supply chain leaders tell me that this is not going to work, let's work towards something which will. Okay, so crisis. Okay, moving on to the first lesson learned. 2002, some people, most of you probably will not remember, but there was a pesticide crisis for PepsiCo and Coke. Yeah, NGO picked up our samples and tested for pesticide residues and published a report saying pesticide residues here are so much higher. How much higher was left unmentioned, but there are pesticide residues. And moms, like most moms, anyway tell their kids, you know, Pepsi is bad for you, Coke is bad for you. They don't have a real reason, except for it is sugary, acidic, etc., etc. Now they had a real big reason. It has pesticides. And it was true, it had pesticides. Like all products which are made using raw agricultural commodities. They have pesticide residues, right? But the first line in the book of toxicology is that everything is a poison and nothing is a poison. It is the dose which makes it a poison. Now it finds, I find it very easy to explain. At that time, we could not explain it well to the public, to the regulators, to the politicians. It was such a hue and cry, and it became kind of an anti-American sentiment in India. You are treating us like second-class human beings, etc., etc. It was so bad that they formed a parliamentary committee to investigate, like actual ministers sitting and investigating. I don't know how many presentations I made to them, along with our CEO. Net result, perception is always more important than the reality. The perception was created that PepsiCo, we anyway instinctively knew that it was bad for our kids, but now we have a real reason. And the consumption went down. We lost a huge amount of market share. The business was dwindling. It went on for 1.5 years, okay? And after that, we were able to convince regulators that there is nothing wrong. All of these things are way below the safety levels, ADI, if some of you know what is ADI, acceptable daily intake. But it took us a few months to come up with those answers. By the time the damage was done, it was not a food safety issue, but I learned the lesson of communicating in simple language. Yeah? I learned a lesson, PepsiCo learned a lesson after losing a huge amount of money and market share. Yeah? Next crisis, Todinho, Brazil. Anybody from Brazil here or know the name Todinho? I see one. And what is Todinho? Good. Very good. And now you know that you don't need a mic to ask or answer a question. Yes? This is very good. So I'll encourage each one of you. Todinho is a chocolate milk. Every kid in Brazil grew up with Todinho. Yeah? It's something which moms will give to their kids to take along with their lunchbox. And this was a real food safety issue, not a perception. So every summer, for a few summers, the business will see an increase in consumer complaints related to spoilage, bad taste. And they thought it's bad taste, it's because of summer. And summer in Brazil is exact opposite of US, December is the summertime. Till the time, during one summer, people started getting hospitalized, and then we realized, and that's when the local business called corporate and said, we have a problem we can't solve. So we all landed there, and we saw that there is a real problem with the product that we are producing. It was a low-level underlying contamination which would get exacerbated during the summer months for obvious reason. And the real thing is, the product development people had made a reformulation, adding zinc to the product, because the whole product proposition was good for the child, good for the growth, good for your muscles. Let me add other good things. While zinc is good for kids, it is also good for the microorganisms, and the low-level contamination increased to higher-level contamination because of the zinc. All of this we learned later on, after doing a lot of research. And the business's immediate reaction was, it is the zinc which caused the problem. Let me take the zinc away, and we'll go back to the old formulation, and things will be normal. They would not be normal. Now we all know that, because underlying problems were there. A creep in the systems, compromise to the hygienic design, increasing the time between sanitation without doing a validation. Everything sounds familiar to each one of you, right? Productivity, 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 till zinc became the last straw that broke the camel's back. After that, not only Brazil, but PepsiCo learned a huge lesson. There have to be certain level of central control, especially when we are producing low acid product. This is a low acid product, yeah? You understand what's a low acid product. Raise your hands. About 90% raise their hands. Rest of them, I think, are shy. So, more than 4.6 pH and certain level of water activity. This plant was shut for 9 months because we said, no, we have to fix everything. So all the non-hygienic valves, the slope of the piping, many things were done. And then after 9 months, we were absolutely sure we are on the right way. And then we restarted. We lost market share, but it was all worth it. Because immediately, within 1.5 years, our market share was back up again, and till date, we are the leading chocolate milk producer in Brazil and surrounding countries. So real food safety issue, we learned. That brings me to culture. I think our drive in PepsiCo about food safety culture started in 2008. 2008 is when the Todinho incident happened. We formed not only technical groups like Process Authority Group, which now sounds, for a company like PepsiCo, you started only in 2008. We used to have third parties do their job for us, yeah? We said we need an internal expertise, and now we have our own group of thermal process authority, sanitation authority, central manuals and mandates and manufacturing control points for each of these processes. Yeah? So the culture change started then. But the funny thing about culture is it changes and people forget the lessons, like all of us do, right? Organizations do. I know Frank spoke about learning from others' mistake. We have 1,300 plants around the world, and while we try our best, we don't even learn from each other's mistake within PepsiCo. And we keep committing the same mistake again and again, and then keep learning again and again. Culture is a never-ending journey. And then some people equate culture with the score you get on the survey. Yeah? We started that thing about 3 years ago. It's a good thing, don't get me wrong, Something which gets measured is something which gets acted upon. So measuring and KPI and scorecards are important, but that's not enough. Anyway, we started our journey, the Lighthouse. Last time I spoke about Lighthouse, that's our own internal PepsiCo scorecard. So different sectors, different plants get measured, and then they get into a ranking system. And then CAPA, corrective action, preventive action, fix it forever mentality, and the supplier performance management. It's not just enough to approve and reapprove suppliers. It is important to keep track of how they are performing, how many incidents or near misses they have had, and then start taking action with the supplier. We have to work with them. And that's important. Not just the legal thing. You are responsible for your own thing. FDA will hold you responsible, but it is our brand which is at stake. Food safety intelligence. Agrono, we have been working with them for 6 years. And I would like to call out, they've been a very good partner in our journey about learning from others' mistakes, the kind of recalls and withdrawal activities which are happening. I still remember an incident about patchoulin in apple juice in South Africa. And if we had our system, then we would have known that this problem is happening because of a certain weather event that happened in that year in South Africa. And we could have been proactive in taking actions. It could be changing the supplier, the source, or more testing, etc., etc. We did none of that and learned only after we had our own recall. Yeah? So large companies, sometimes I see people coming from small companies and telling me, you are large, you have so much resources. So I just want to let you know that all of us are exactly in the same boat. Yeah? But then, real corrective actions and preventive actions happen. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk about lessons learned from mergers and acquisitions that we have had. You know, Frank also spoke about complacency. We thought we knew beverage, yeah? And we did. Everything from CSTs to hot fill to tunnel pasteurized to low acid. We had the technical strength and the capability building exercise throughout PepsiCo. And it was a pretty centralized system, right? There were mandates. And then Pepsi started about 127 years ago. Then we bought Frito-Lay about 70 years ago. Frito-Lay was, PepsiCo was one formula, same around the world. Wherever you go, you will get the same Pepsi. Frito-Lay came up with a different business proposition which said consumer is the king, consumer tastes are different. If for potato chips, Vietnamese like more salt, we'll give them more salt. Somebody wants less, we'll give them less. Same thing went for the thickness of the chips, etc., etc., etc. So it was a more decentralized entrepreneurial culture. Yes, we did some level of centralization, but not as much in terms of food safety and quality as much as we did in beverages. Then started the journey of mergers and acquisition. What is not mentioned here is about 15 years ago we acquired Wimbledon, a dairy company in Russia. We still run it today, and it is the largest producer of milk and dairy, like everything from milk to cheese to butter to modern dairy. So when we acquired, we started learning about dairy, which is a completely different ballgame in terms of food safety and quality. And as we were learning, we meaning PepsiCo, we realized that there were many things lacking and we had to invest a lot. And now we are in a good shape in spite of that war happening and the sanctions on Russia, where many of the experts cannot fly in, or many of the spare parts cannot be sent. We have built enough expertise in our Russia business to hold the fort. Then came Cytosport, muscle milk. I have one slide for each one of them. Then in 2020 came Bee and Cherry, which was just a pure online snacks company based in China, and they produced everything from ready-to-eat meat-based snacks, and I'll talk more about it. Then came Pioneer in 20, which had about 40 factories in South Africa and surrounding countries, had products like flour, fresh bread, shelf life of 6 or 7 days, and various other things that were not the core competence of PepsiCo. So we learned a lot. CAT. Most people know what is CAT. No? Okay. Those who do not know what is CAT. Okay. So, it's a very expensive chips. I've learned the art of communicating simply. Way more expensive than Frito-Lay, but not just chips, but tortillas and various other things as well. But Small company, started in a garage, a family-owned company, super successful, only use avocado oil, no grains. So the thing was made or is made from cassava and almond flour and coconut flour. So really unique thing. If you have not tried it, absolutely go and try it. It's available in Costco, various other stores. We learned a few things from them. So it's not a merger and acquisition story that we have to teach them what is food safety and quality. There are things that we learn from each acquisition. And then Sabra, anybody who knows Sabra? Lots of people know Sabra. Hummus, right? I'll talk about the interesting food safety incidents that we had when we were not, they had, we were still the 50% owner, but we didn't have the operational control. Now we have 100% ownership, and now we are responsible. They have a similar brand called Obela in Australia, New Zealand, but everything from hummus to guacamole to various other cheese-based dips. And then came Poppi. Poppi, I thought it was a Gen Z thing. No? Looks like, okay. I'm very impressed. I didn't know about Poppi till the time we acquired it. And my daughter said, like, what? I drink Poppi all the time. So it's a Gen Z thing, no advertising except Instagram and that social media thing, which I don't understand. All advertising is through influencers. Yeah? Super successful, growing like 30-40% every year. So it's a prebiotic soda. Has got prebiotic, has got apple vinegar. So everything in the WhatsApp world, when there's a WhatsApp university, you know that, right? Most people follow the WhatsApp university, or most consumers follow it. So whatever is in the social media that comes in, this is good for you. So Gen Z favorite, still growing. So let me talk a little bit more about Cytosport. Yeah, again, milk-based, but we started with whey protein in the powder form. Right now we are in a phase of replacing it with real liquid milk. Important point here is we learned a lot from them, but they had to learn a lot from us in terms of systems and consistency. B& Cherry, they made the kind of products that we can't imagine. In the US, you can't imagine. In Vietnam, South Korea, China, they all. So the thing I remember, one product was ready-to-eat chicken feet. Yeah? So you open the packet and is chicken feet, looks like a chicken feet, baked, seasoned, and just eat it. But you can imagine the risks that came along with that. We are on a journey to improve the processes. The regulations in China are very different than in US. Not to say that one is better than the other. I have seen something much better in China sometimes. Anyway, high-risk portfolio. Pioneer food, 40 different things. I spoke about it. Bread, flour, jams. Siete, I spoke about it. Mission-driven company. What we learned from them is agility. PepsiCo is huge, $92 billion company. With that huge, we are the #1 food and beverage manufacturer in the US. Globally, we are #2 behind Nestle. However, the agility with which they do innovation and the speed with which they fail and get out of the market is something that we are learning. And Sabra is hummus. They had 2 major recalls before we acquired them. salmonella and listeria, old factory hygienic design issues, and right now, after acquisition, we are in the process of adding pasteurization. It was not pasteurized. And ESL fillers. You understand ESL, extended shelf life, yeah, clean fillers. And Poppi, I spoke enough about Poppi. Go try it. I love it. Now my go-to drink is Poppi. And so this is my last slide. Really, learning. Not just on the part of organization, centralization versus decentralization, how much you can mandate, how much of autonomy you give to the sectors, getting the right balance, digitization. In my last speech here in this forum, I spoke a lot about digitization, so this time I'm not going to talk about it, but keeping the instructions simple. 1,100 plants, 1,300 plants around the world, different language, different understanding. Unless your instructions are clear and simple, they will never get implemented, and you've got to keep repeating them, and their level of documentation has to be simple. Understanding the process and technology is as important as understanding the risk and the hazards. Yeah? So food safety quality professional, you've got to understand the equipment, without which you will never be as successful as you should be. And progress is more important than perfection. There are different ways and means of skinning the cat, and never get stuck. Only then you will get your credibility with the senior management, and you will get your CapExes approved. This is my last slide. Sorry, 6 minutes left. Questions? Okay, we haven't learned one more. Yeah, there is always, nobody spoke about Maha, remove artificials, all of that industry has been voluntold. Go do it rather than as part of regulations. Whatever the situation is, we adjust and we keep doing that. That's it. 5 minutes, 38 seconds. Questions? Okay.
What have you found, and is it possible to change culture without major problems and issues?
Great question. Absolutely great question. Generally difficult. Business managers will always tell you, well, the competition does this, why are you forcing me extra money and all that? And people do not think. So the problems that we faced, we have to keep repeating them, and the problems that others have faced and gone to jail and destroyed their brand. So we do not necessarily have to go through the problems, but I think problems are the catalyst for building the culture. And there are enough examples in industry. More questions? And you have to say your name and the organization before asking the question.
Fabian Smith with Cargill. So thank you for walking us through the journey of the acquisitions. How would you describe your FSQA team involvement during all of these acquisitions, more from the due diligence perspective?
Excellent question. My team is here, so feel free to ask anybody. They have the PepsiCo badge. This is also a problem. Typically, how does large acquisitions happen? There is a separate group called, within PepsiCo, I'm sure with other large, called M&A group. So they keep on searching and, and then spend most of the time doing financials, various other things. And in the end, as an afterthought, food safety, you have any comments? So, and changing that into please involve us right from the beginning. Okay, so they did, and then we didn't have enough resources. Then we said, please don't involve us in all the 10 prospects. If the prospect is like really close, okay. We have a whole system of mergers and acquisition. So in every single sector, there is a designated person, and that person from our team will go and do the due diligence. We have also learned that 40 factories due diligence, like you're not going into every factory to see what the problem is. We will always find more problems, and therefore we have kind of come up with the formula that if you find $10 million worth of gaps, they are actually $100 million, and we build it into the M&A.